What's up YouTube? This is Slaan here again from Northern Land, and we are back in Project Slaanhatten for the second tutorial. And this tutorial is going to have to be broken down into multiple steps because it's going to be quite a long one, but I'm hoping not to go past 15-20 minutes with this first part. And basically what I'm going to cover is adding a new area to the hub itself. Now initially this road that we're looking at here was the outside edge of the hub, and there was a mixer coded road running down there. That's since been removed in the latest version, and you can see I've already added the roads for what will become the outside, and that little bit there and this little bit here are just the connections. As you can see, the random gen roads fit to them just nicely instead of cutting across the hub and all sorts of other nastiness. But basically I'm going to turn this little area here, as I mentioned in the last video, into the school and field, any other little buildings that I might throw in there. But the very first step in adding a new area, other than deciding where it is that you want to actually build, is getting the roads in there. And the roads are very important because the terrain snaps to the roads. So if the roads weren't there and you just added the prefabs, the hills and all sorts of stuff would just be out of control. I mean, what you can see here is this part of the biome, the natural sort of ground level would be much lower than what it is, but because these roads have been coded in via the mixer, the terrain itself actually starts to creep towards them. And I do believe this was one of the major things with Alpha 13 when it first came out, and the whole way that random gem was working, and they've done a much better job than what they had previously done in the 12. The way the hub sits inside the natural landscape now looks way better than it did. And I know things like this they still aren't perfect, but there's still, if for example, if I was to code another road in that started here where we're looking now, and I just extended that out, say 50 or 60 blocks, what we would actually see is the terrain over here would actually dip and then start to connect to this road as well. Now this would have a knock-on effect, because if you can picture the inverted opposite, as in this would be a hill instead of a channel going down, the terrain would be growing up. This second road here would, if you can picture, the hill would start at the road and then work its way to the next one. Now if this was a particularly huge hill, which does happen on some seeds, even with the roads coded in, running right to the edge of the hub, we could still see big cliffs and all sorts of crazy stuff. So having the extra road connectors there is just blending the terrain a little bit better. It's not always perfect, but it's basically what we have to work with. But anyway, back to making the area. So before we even look at the prefabs that we're going to use, although I do have a few in mind, I will be working with the vanilla school. We've got the roads set in, and what we need to do now is basically make 3 extra prefabs that are going to fit into here. And the reason I know that I need to make 3 prefabs is because, and there's Hals editor, which we'll get to in just a second. As you can see, the area itself is actually covering 3 grid sections. So these are already in. These will be the coordinates that we'll use when we start naming. I think I'm only going to build initially in this area here, but I'm going to make this tile as well. I might as well add it in there because I will be building on that area at some point soon, so it can't do us any harm doing that now. So the next step, after we've got the roads in there, if we are happy with the way the terrain's working, then them roads at the minute I'm just going to leave. I'll probably set the base area in, and then once we've got the first few of the buildings in there, maybe we'll go back to the road itself and maybe add a few more in, or remove and change them around however sees fit. I'm very ad hoc when it comes to building, and things change on the fly, on a whim. A new idea will pop up and then something different happens. So like I say, nothing has to be really sort of set in stone until you set it in stone, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So anyway, we're going to jump into the editor, and every single city section is 117 by 117. Name. I think we'll do that now then. I was actually thinking that was going to crop up later. But as we can see, these are the coordinates for the actual prefab lots. The green numbers that you see are the block coordinates, but the way that the prefabs are spawning in Alpha 13 is to the south and to the east of the actual lot coordinate. We only reference the top left block within the mixer itself. It'll spawn the whole tile from that one block. So when it comes to working out what coordinates you need to enter, this little corner is what we're looking for. But for the purposes of naming the prefab itself, the 4-3 are the actual coordinates for this particular section of the map. So this is what we'll use. In the standard format in the project itself is X custom city, and then we would hit the coordinates, which in this case is 4, 3. Now we want 117 by 117, and I'm going to give it 30 layers of A, so that later on when we come to reload the hub up with these extra pieces in, if there's big hills or anything like that there, we'll still get a bit of space above the actual prefab that we've made to work on, or to mess around or whatever. It can be quite difficult sometimes when you have a single layer of A above a flat prefab that's at ground level, and then all of a sudden a big hill hangs over or the terrain doesn't quite work with it. So the height is going to be 30. Now we are on layer 0, which is going to be our ground level. The next thing we need to do is add another 25 layers, and these bad boys are all going to be stone, and these are going to be the base that the prefab sits on. So basically, even with the roads in there, sometimes you might end up with, like I was just showing with the burnt biome, when the slope is underneath the city, it can affect structural integrity. You wouldn't be able to build things on top of it unless you are placing directly onto the ground. So these 25 layers of stone, it was initially 35, but 35 interferes with the bedrock layer sometimes, and it'll stop the tiles from spawning. So 25, after a little chat with Stompy NZ, was decided would be a much more comfortable number to work with. So our prefab is now 54 layers, and we are going to go to layer 0, which is the very bottom, and replace the block ID, and we are simply going to replace A with stone. And we are going to copy that layer 0 from layer 1 to 24. And if I just full screen this a second and zoom that out a little bit. So very bland, very boring, nothing special. And as you can see, 25, this is the layer that I would start putting sidewalks, paths in. This will actually form the true ground layer of the prefab itself. But for our purposes, in fact, I tell you what, we will stick some destroyed stone on that top layer just so that we don't destroyed stone. It's just, I mean, the offset won't be off, but I mean, when you know that the destroyed stone should be the ground level, it can be a lot easier to work out if you've made a mistake with the offset and such. But the next thing to do is to jump into the random world XML stuff. We don't want to take any of this stuff, we don't need it. We are only ever going to use prefabs like this within the project, so none of this stuff is relevant whatsoever. But what we do need is the height offset set to -25. And I'm going to save that and correct all those air densities. A lot of air layers, I think. I'll just get rid of that stuff. So that's basically it. We have the first section of the prefab done. So that's this area here. Now we still want 4.2 and 4.1 added. But for speed, what we're going to do is save this as, and then X custom city, and that was 4.2, 4.2, and so you can see the name's changed up there, and then we are going to save it again as 4.1. So there we go. So we've got with 3 base areas. They're made, they will work. All we need to do now is add them into the mixer. So just get rid of the editor and we'll get rid of that. I don't need that either. And this is already waiting for us. So once you've got your prefabs done, the first thing, the most important step that a lot of people miss with the custom hubs, and we've all been guilty of it somewhere or later, is the actual hub itself needs its own prefab rule where every single prefab used is there and is I think this basically acts as a library for the mixer to reference from, but I'm not a coding guru so I may be wrong, but either way it has to be done. You will get null ref errors if you don't add them here. So if you find you've added something and you're trying to reload it and you get a null ref error, this would be the first thing I would check. But basically I'm just going to copy this. I'll copy 3 since I'm adding 3. And as the school area is hanging off downtown, I'm going to stick them on the end of this. So we have 4, was it 4.1? Oh, 2 seconds, I'm going to have to grab the map back up now. Prefab grid map. 4.3, 4.2 and 4.1. 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and then I'm just going to save that because I have a habit of pressing buttons and stuff when I'm in Notepad and fucking the mixer up completely without knowing why. The next step is we are going to go, this is the sorry, I'm just forgetting that I'm actually streaming here, but the next step is to find the hub layout for the Slaanhatten, where you can see that there, and what we are looking for are the lot minimum, these entries here, and basically each one of these lines of code tells a section as referenced there to spawn at the coordinates that you set there. So again, because we're working in the downtown area, let me make a couple of spaces. I'm just going to, in fact I'll do them one at a time just in case I mess something up. So copy and paste. Right, so I'm just going to quickly open the grid map again. Because as I've mentioned numerous times, we work in multiples of 117, so all of your coordinates, regardless of what they are, should all be divisible by 117. And what we're looking for this time is we want the block coordinates of this corner. So this is what the green numbers come in handy for. The first number is your east and west, the second number is north and south. So basically we are going to go along here to 468 and all the way up here to 468. That means that the coordinates for the prefab lot 4.3 is 468, 468. Very simple stuff. And let's not forget to change the name. Now what I like to do here in the commented bit is, this is just for at a glance checking the coordinates and stuff like that. I just find it a bit handier to have. So that's the first one done. Let's paste another line in there, so the coordinates for the next one would be 468, 351. And this one is for section 4.2. Now it's probably worth mentioning that this is the only time that you should have to touch the mixer. Once your prefabs are added and saved into the prefab grid, from that point onwards we are just going to edit that particular prefab in the editor, or we will build it within the hub and extract it out and overwrite that particular prefab. So once you've set the lots down in the mixer, the faffy code and stuff is out the way. and the last one will be 468,234. And this one will be 41. Now we'll save that. So just to summarise what we've done in the mixer, we have added the new areas to the prefab rule for the hub itself. Now if you're not familiar with the mixer, the way you would find that group, other than the huge ginormous list of Custom City prefabs, is you can start at the top, cell rule, Project Slaanhatten. So we go to the cell rules and we find the Project Slaanhatten cell rule, which is here. Slaanhatten requires the large city hub rule, which again we go into the hub rules and we find that one lingering at the bottom, and there we go there. This is basically the mixer saying lay the city out like this, and we are going to use these prefabs. So the city hub prefabs is, when we go back to that ridiculously big list, is what you can see here, and I've just pressed a button. I felt that. Where's my cursor gone? Oh no, I haven't, it's not telling us to save. Ignore me, ignore me. Right, so the city hub prefabs, we go back. So there we go. So if you didn't know, that's how you would find out where you needed to add these entries. So with the mixer done and the mixer set, I'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that and jump back into the game. So let's take a long hard look at this area, because the next time we come in it is about to change. So let's quit out of there. I'll generate a new game, we'll just call this one 5, and we'll start that up. Now the seed itself, obviously I've never seen this particular seed before, so there might be other sections of the city haven't spawned due to clipping issues or whatever. What we need to do basically is just to fly to the area that we've just added the prefabs to and double check that they are actually there. So we will DM and go straight to 00. And the lovely highway, and as we can see we're in snow biome, so we should be flying over some empty prefab lots soon. And there we go. What you're seeing here is basically these city sections contain buildings or areas that clip out the top of the world, and what happens in that scenario is this: the prefab tile refuses to spawn. Which shouldn't be much of a problem for the areas that we've added, because we've got 30 layers of air, and 30 layers above ground shouldn't interfere with anything anyway. We'll put cheat mode flight on, it's a little bit faster. Oh, and we've got nothing here. Problem. And I love problems. What I'm going to do is quickly nip back into the mixer and see if I can spot what I've done wrong. I'll make myself a little checklist in my head, because this type of stuff happens to us all the time. One thing I need to double check is, am I actually editing the right mixer? So just so you can see what I'm doing, there's nothing like a good mistake to show people. I'm just going to go into here, config, and edit that with Notepad. Yep, we are in the right mixer. City sections in the prefab rule are there, 41, 42, 43. And in the downtown area, 43, 42, 41. Oh, there's a little... Now I've probably missed something totally obvious off the top of my head. I don't understand why that should have... The ground layers are there, the roads are in, the 3 sections are made. I'm just going to double check inside the prefabs folder to make sure that those prefabs are there. Custom City 4th, X Custom City Right, and time to check spellings. Lot main, XYZ, yep. X custom city, 434241. Let's check the prefab rule. 41, 42, 43. Right. Right, what I'm going to do is just quickly stop the stream, scratch my head for 5 minutes and come back to you as soon as I know exactly what I've done wrong. Okay then, so I'm back and I found the problem, and it took me a record 6 or 7 minutes to do, and as you can see I forgot to tick the allow air blocks block. Since we've just added 30 layers of air to the prefab, it would be handy. Now I'm not 100% sure why the 25 layers of stone in the one layer of destroyed stone didn't spawn, but I don't really care, to be honest, as long as it's working now. And we'll just ignore that little funny glitch thing that's going on. But basically, as you can see, we have the whole section here is put in there, and what you'll notice just towards the northern end is where the road has been coded in via the mixer. Half of the radius of the road has actually overlapped onto the prefab, and you can see the seamless blocks will blend over seamless blocks, so the destroyed stone has become asphalt. And as we can see here as well, what was once the edge of the hub with a path is now going to need editing, but I'm going to save all that for the next tutorial, where we'll I think we'll focus on tidying these little areas up, and we'll get rid of the paths, and we'll cut in the roads a bit tidier, so that basically what would be left with is just a large blank empty flat space. And from that point onwards, we can start adding buildings and building directly onto it, or working on the editor, prefab. It's entirely up to you what direction you want to take, but we'll probably do a combination of everything. I have quite a weird way of working. I like to just dump the building in a few times and have a look, and then when I settle on something final, that's when I'll start going into more detail. So for now, a quick summary would probably be something like setting the roads is the first job, going into the mixer itself, which I'll just quickly bring back up. So we are going to go into the mixer, into the hub layout, and this is the roads here. Now I have all of these sectioned off. The uptown inner roads, etc, etc, is what the groups are called on the hub roadmap. And as you can see, it's exactly the same as the prefab lot. You have coordinates for a start point, coordinates for an end point, you set the material, you set the radius, and voila, that's it. But once your roads are in there, you want to make the base prefab sections via the editor, which should be 117 by 117 and contain 25 layers of stone beneath them. The air layers above are optional. Once you start adding buildings and stuff like that, you know, we can work on sort of floating hills and stuff like that above the prefab itself once the tile's actually done. You know, it's not too hard to come back at a later date and correct that before it gets released into the next version. And not forgetting, tick the allow air blocks box. Save the prefab. You will find the coordinates that you need to use in the name on the grid map, which are the red numbers, and if you want you can use the green numbers to work out those block locations, all on that one grid, sorry. Then the prefab gets saved, then we go back into the mixer, which I'll just bring back up again, and then we add first the prefab that we've made into the prefab rule for the hub, Cust City Hub prefabs, and then we add the code for the prefab lot. Now once all that's in and that's saved, you should be able to reload the game up, and on a fresh seed, or delete your old seed and reload on the same one, which is what I do sometimes just to keep everything looking natural, or so I can work within the same sort of area without crazy things changing. And once that's saved, we can, like I say, reload the hub up and crack away with the next step, which would be inserting buildings or building directly onto it and cutting the roads and stuff like that. So I've stretched a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I hope that you are able to follow this so far. If there's anything you'd like explained in more detail, feel free to add in the comments, to jump onto the forums, the Facebook group, the Steam group. Plenty of ways you can grab a hold of us now. And please like, comment, subscribe and share this with your friends. The more people that know about the project, the more people that can help make it bigger and better. So yeah, I would appreciate if people can spread the word a little bit, and we'll start making some serious changes to it soon. But for now, this is Slaan signing out, and I will catch you next time for part 2 of the tutorial.